License and ID right now. You're standing on a sidewalk, maybe outside a store, maybe filming in public, maybe you were just walking home. The officer walks up fast. What's your name? Let me see your ID. Why are you refusing? If you've done nothing wrong, why are you nervous? And suddenly, the entire encounter changes because most people panic right there. They either hand over ID when the law may not require it, or they start arguing emotionally and make things worse. So what do you actually do when a tyrant officer demands identification without clearly explaining why? Can police legally force you to identify yourself? What words should you use? What mistakes turn a simple encounter into an arrest? Because one wrong sentence can accidentally give the officer exactly what they want. Every video here could save you from a serious mistake one day. Subscribe now so you don't miss what could protect you. Then share this video and drop your opinion below. I want to hear what you think. A voluntary conversation becomes an investigation. A detention becomes consent. A nervous explanation becomes probable cause. And most people don't even realize it's happening. In this video, you're going to learn how illegal ID demands often happen, what officers may be trying to establish during the encounter, the exact phrases you can calmly use, and how to protect yourself without escalating the situation. First, understand the biggest mistake people make. They assume every police interaction is automatically mandatory. It isn't. In many situations, officers can walk up and ask questions voluntarily. They can ask for your name, they can ask for ID, they can ask where you're going. But asking is not always the same thing as legally requiring. That distinction matters a lot, because the moment you assume every request is mandatory, you start surrendering rights you may still have. Here's how it often sounds. Why are you refusing to identify yourself? Because I don't know if I'm legally required to. So now you want to play lawyer? No, officer, I'm just asking if I'm being detained. That phrase matters. Am I being detained or am I free to go? It forces legal clarity into the interaction. Why? Because the Constitution generally treats voluntary encounters differently from investigative detentions. If you are free to leave, you may not have to answer questions at all, depending on the circumstances and local law. If you are being detained, the officer may need reasonable suspicion that a crime is connected to you before extending the stop. That doesn't mean argue. That doesn't mean resist. That doesn't mean walk away suddenly. It means calmly forcing the officer to define the encounter. Now here's the second trap: talking too much. People think they can explain their way out of suspicion. Instead, they usually talk themselves deeper into the stop. Look, officer, I was just coming from my friend's house and honestly, I forgot my wallet and I know this looks weird, but stop. Nervous talking gives officers more details to analyze, challenge, and sometimes misinterpret. In many encounters, silence protects you better than explanations. A calmer response sounds like this: Officer, I choose to remain silent. Am I legally required to provide identification? I do not wish to answer questions. Notice what's missing. No insults, no aggression, no sudden movements, no courtroom speech, just controlled language. That's important because officers often look for emotional escalation. The louder the civilian gets, the easier it becomes to justify further control measures. Your goal is not to win the argument on the sidewalk. Your goal is to survive the encounter safely while preserving your rights for later. That's a huge difference. Now, let's talk about something many people misunderstand: stop and identify laws. Some states allow officers to require ID during a lawful detention under certain circumstances. Other states limit this authority more heavily. That means the answer changes depending on where you are and why the officer stopped you. This is why you should avoid absolute statements like, "You can never ask me for ID," "I know my rights," "You have no authority." Those phrases usually make encounters worse. Instead, use calm, legal clarification. Officer, are you alleging I committed a crime? What reasonable suspicion are you investigating? Am I legally required to identify myself under state law? See the difference? You're asking questions, not escalating. And remember this carefully. Even if the officer is wrong, the roadside is not the courtroom. Physical resistance can turn a rights issue into an arrest, injury, or worse.
Complying physically while preserving rights is often the safer path. That leads to another critical phrase. I am not resisting, but I do not consent. That sentence can become extremely important later. Why? Because officers sometimes interpret silence or compliance as consent. For example, step over here. Empty your pockets. Mind if I take a look in your bag? Many people comply automatically because they feel pressured, but pressure is not always legal consent. A safer response sounds like this. Officer, I do not consent to searches. I will comply with lawful orders, but I do not consent. That wording matters because it separates physical safety from legal permission. You're reducing escalation while preserving your position. Now here's another major trap. Reaching too quickly. The moment officers demand ID, many people immediately reach into pockets, waistbands, glove compartments, or bags without warning. That can become dangerous instantly. Instead, narrate your movements calmly. My wallet is in my right pocket. My identification is in my backpack. I'm reaching slowly. Simple, clear, predictable. Remember, officers are trained to react quickly to sudden movements, especially during tense encounters. Your calm behavior protects you too. Now, let's address one of the biggest psychological tricks used during these encounters: guilt pressure. If you've done nothing wrong, why not just cooperate? Only criminals refuse ID. You're making this harder than it needs to be. A lot of people fold right there. But constitutional rights are not admissions of guilt. The right to remain silent exists for innocent people too. The right to refuse consent exists for innocent people too. And exercising rights should never automatically create suspicion by itself. Still, how you exercise those rights matters enormously. You do not want sarcasm. You do not want insults. You do not want auditor behavior designed to provoke confrontation. You want calm professionalism. Think about the difference between these two responses. You tyrants violate rights every day versus, officer, I respectfully do not consent to questioning. One escalates emotion, the other preserves composure. And composure matters because body camera footage often becomes the evidence later viewed by supervisors, lawyers, judges, juries, or internal investigators. Now, let's talk about recording. In many places, recording police in public is generally protected as long as you are not interfering with lawful duties. But laws and practical realities vary. If you record, keep distance, keep hands visible, keep your voice calm, and avoid turning the encounter into a performance. A calm statement like this is usually smarter. I am recording this interaction for my safety and yours. Again, calm language changes everything. Now, another phrase that matters if the situation escalates. I want a lawyer. Not tomorrow, not later, immediately. Once you clearly invoke your right to counsel, continuing detailed conversation can hurt you legally. And remember this, officers are allowed to use strategic questioning techniques. Many people accidentally waive protections by continuing to talk after requesting counsel. So, if you say it, mean it. Then, stop talking. At the end of the day, exposing a tyrant officer is usually not about screaming constitutional buzzwords. It's about discipline. Calm voice, clear questions, no consent, no sudden movements, no roadside arguments, no unnecessary explanations. The safest framework is simple. Stay calm, comply with lawful commands, ask if you are detained, do not physically resist, do not consent to searches, remain silent when appropriate, request a lawyer if the situation escalates, and most importantly, understand that laws can vary depending on the state, the type of stop, and the specific facts involved. This video is educational information, not personal legal advice, because in police encounters, the people who protect themselves best are usually not the loudest people. They're the calmest. And in the next video, we're breaking down the 3 words drivers say during traffic stops that accidentally give officers permission to search the entire vehicle without a warrant.